My name is Tyler Rittinger. I'm a teacher here in the city. I teach an outdoor program called EcoQuest. I also have on the side of that started a radio show called Switching Gears Bike Radio. Some of the people on the screen right now have cameoed on that show and helped contribute to that process. But it looks like we've got a whole pile of people with a whole wealth of cycling experience on this screen. And hopefully we have some people that are relatively new to this idea of winter cycling. So welcome to our Winter Cycling 101. Just right off the top, I will let you know we're recording tonight's broadcast so that we could use clips of this in an upcoming episode, actually this Thursday's episode of Switching Gears Bike Radio, and that's on CFCR 90.5. So 6:30 on Thursday nights if you want to hear anything bike related. And of course, this week we'll do a show based on what we hear tonight. You guys are here because you either are passionate about or new to the idea of winter cycling. And with this whole dump of early snow, we definitely are in the bonus days of winter cycling here in Saskatoon. And I think you've probably noticed from the fresh tracks when you are commuting or going out for just a recreational ride that there are actually more and more of us. I see our tracks each day as I'm moving around Saskatoon. We've got a panel of experts here that are going to share some of their knowledge with you. I'll start by introducing Pam Grote. I'm not sure where she is on your screen, but Pam, if you want to give it a wave. Pam is a project engineer at the City of Saskatoon, and she works in the sustainability division. She's worked on different projects around renewable energy and electric vehicles. She's been in Saskatoon for about the last 5 years, and she's been a bike commuter whenever possible. I think she let us know that she finds those commutes easier to do while she's been in Saskatoon. However, since June, she's been working from home up in La Ronge. And so since June, she's been living the outdoor life from her place in La Ronge, and at the same time expecting her first child any day now. So thanks for being with us, Pam. We also have Zach McGregor. Zach, want to give us a wave? Zach is one of Saskatoon Cycle's board members. He is a longtime bike commuter with a whole wealth of experience in that area and going on, I think it might be his 6th winter on the bike. His commute consists of traveling along the Meewasin Valley Trail system as well as some of the adjacent streets leading to and from his work and home. And so he's putting about 6K each direction on his bike to get to and from work. So he'll have a lot of shared knowledge from that experience alone. Our third panelist is Jim Arnold. Jim can give us a wave. Jim is an all-season bike commuter. He's another board member with Saskatoon Cycles. He's a doctoral psychologist, and he is a huge advocate for safe active transportation. I got a chance to meet Jim when we both attended the World Winter Cycling Congress in Calgary and shared some of his passion and knowledge for everything around the idea of winter biking. So thanks for joining us, Jim. Those will be our 3 panelists that we go through, and I'll give sort of a lowdown of how the process will work after I make sure I give a shout out to Stan Yu. A lot of you know Stan from the Bridge City Bike Co-op, a longtime board member there. Some of you maybe only know Stan from as early as this morning, where he gave a very passionate interview on CBC Radio with Leisha Grabinski. He is an outdoor enthusiast extraordinaire. He is one who has really taken up the idea of cycling year round, and he has put a whole lot of effort into making this evening happen. So thank you very much, Stan. The plan for the evening is we'll go through 4 categories, and within each of those categories, we'll give each of those panelists a chance to share some knowledge. After the 4 categories are through, Stan will be moderating a Q&A. So you can either type a question into the chat box, and you can do that at any time if it pops in your head, and Stan will keep an eye on that and ask those questions at the end. Following the 4th category, Stan will ask you to unmute if you'd prefer to ask your question yourself. And again, I remind you, this is being recorded. So if you prefer not to have yourself recorded on voice, you can actually just have Stan ask that question. The 4 categories, just so that you guys can kind of get an idea of where we'll cover. We'll start with clothing. We'll go from there into winterizing your bike. The 3rd category will be the actual task of riding your bike in the wintertime. And the 4th one will just kind of pick up any loose ends. It'll be our general tips section. So we'll start from that top, and we talk about clothing first. We'll talk a little bit about the priorities to how to dress maybe extra accessories, so you're looking for warmth and visibility. We'll talk about some maybe tricks and tips that you have that would allow you to be comfortable both on the bike, but even when you get to your destination, making sure you're ready for wherever you need to get to. So I'll start with Pam for this first one. And Pam, you can talk a little bit about dressing for winter cycling.
Sure. Thanks, Tyler. I feel like most people who have grown up with like prairie winters have a pretty good sense of the type of gear that they need to be wearing just on a day-to-day, like in terms of if you're spending any extended period of time outdoors, you probably have a lot of this stuff already. So I guess that's kind of a positive. But the main things that I like to ensure that I have include wind-resistant pants, a boot that ideally doesn't have any laces. I've ripped quite a few laces on the bike gears before. But I would say that I could use a boot with toastier toes. There's the one thing I've noticed with winter cycling is that the front of your hands and the tips of your toes are the most exposed place. Like that's the thing that's hitting the wind first. So that's something to always keep in mind of like that's an area that could use some extra warmth or insulation. This has kind of been really nice in COVID times, but I have a mask. It's from Cambridge company, and it actually has a filter, and it's I think it's rated to N99. So that's actually been cool to have on hand. We got this filtered one before COVID happened because just dealing with exhaust pipes from cars, we tend to notice the smell a lot more in the winter. So yeah, that was just something that we invested in to make use of. And then I used to live in Calgary, so I have a lot of snowboarding gear. And so I actually use my snowboarding helmet, which is insulated and has like really nice, like softer ear flaps and everything. So that's worked out really well as goggles, which I will admit would be much better if they were clear, because most of the time I am cycling in the dark. So it's making it even darker with this tinted lens. In terms of high vis, I have a vest, like just a regular construction high vis vest, which I put on over my regular winter jacket. And yeah, those are kind of like the main different cycling specific things I have.
Thanks, Pam. There's some really good specifics there. Let's move on to Jim. Jim, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you dress for cycling?
I'm, I actually, most of the time pre-COVID, I would even wear a necktie. I just dress as I would for work, and then I put layers on top. So, I mean, today I'm wearing just the shirt I worked in, and I've got one layer on. Today it was about -10. So one layer like this is just a recycled, fiber fleece. And then I have it's a red jacket. They make these lovely cycling jackets with 3 pockets in the back. Those are just wonderful things because you can put your keys in. You can put, whatever it is. Sometimes it'll be a buff to put around my neck and nose. If things get warm, you can throw things in there. I'm an eyeglass person, and I have researched over the last 15 to 20 years of winter cycling of what the situation is with eyeglasses. And basically, you're going to fog up your eyeglasses if you cover your face at all. And even if you are able to direct all of your breath downward, there is something going on with your eyes in really cold weather. I think there's eye moisture that comes out. So basically what I've determined is most of the time I wear a tube down around my chin, and I'll pull it up and then I'll pull it down if I have to stop so I can actually see. It's a real pain and does make your fingers certainly cold. Sometimes, I look at the price of gear. A tank of gas is maybe $60. So it's okay to buy something like a pair of glasses with a prescription insert in them. There's all sorts of brand names, and they're probably superior to wearing just plain ordinary eyeglasses. But I encourage looking online and then take them somewhere for some cheap lenses to be put in. I have multiple pairs. I've destroyed multiple pairs over time as well. Cold isn't necessarily kind, scratching. A lot of them have different replaceable lenses. I'm going to talk mittens. I'm a very cheap person when it comes to mittens. So I do things like go to Peavey Mart and buy leather mitts, and then I'll put wool, can I get in there? Wool liners. And so currently, my hands are always cold. So currently I'm wearing 2 sets, and I've worn up to 4. You buy very big mittens. All you have to do is be able to run the paddles of your shifting. Though I'll have to say when it gets colder, and we'll talk about that, you don't shift as much. In terms of what to wear, I buy, these are really ugly wind pants. They were from Value Village, so they were $5 or something. I put them on top of my regular dress pants. And the final thing that I've had, these are, have you ever seen gaiters, which are for, they go around your legs and under your foot with the little strap. And when conditions are sloppy, I'm wearing nice dress pants, so I put those on and they go almost to your knee. These ones, I think I originally bought in Mountain Equipment Co-op probably 15 years ago. You know, they last forever. So, and I think I'll stop there. I do wear a helmet in the wintertime, only because I mount lights on it. I'm not in favor in general of mandatory helmets in any circumstances. And depending on where I'm riding in the winter, I don't tend to wear one because it's not going to be, I'm going to be hit by a car if I'm going to be injured. You know, you're not necessarily going to hurt your head in any other way. It's one of those, we need good infrastructure versus protective gear when it comes to that. Alrighty.
Thanks, Jim. We'll move on to Zach. Zach, do you have some tips for us on how you dress?
Well, it's like for me, I find the most important things to keep the wind off. And I probably have hundreds of pieces of clothing, it feels like, because I'm changing what I wear every single day. I look at the forecast. Today, you know, it's -8. I wore a long sleeve t-shirt and a windbreaker. If it's -15, I'll throw a sweater on under that. -25, I wear a jacket. But I tend not to buy cycling specific clothes. I really like outdoor workwear. Like you buy what the guy working construction outside is going to wear, and you end up with like work gloves. These are insulated. They're bright orange. They've got all this armor on the backside, so if you wipe out, you're not getting hurt. You know, under my helmet, I wear a balaclava that's sold at Mark's Work Warehouse. We're wearing under a hard hat. You know, it's nice and thin. It fits under the helmet, but it keeps me warm, and they're not super expensive. You know, they're like cycling specific gloves are like $80 or something. I think I paid like $19.99 for these or something, and they last years. And when it gets really cold out, try out the goggles. I found these ones. They've got a yellow lens. They seem to work pretty good to help you see the contrast in the snow. My problem is I'm a glasses wearer, so the first time you hit a red light or a stop sign, you just fog up, and then you're kind of done. But it works good when it's -30 out. And then this year, I'm trying something new. I bought some pogies. So these are basically mittens that fit on the handlebar of your bike. So then you can wear thinner gloves and you can still shift and work the brakes and stuff. But I haven't actually got them on the bike yet, so I can't give a review on those, but I've seen them online lots. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of like I've been doing it for 5 years and I still don't know if I have it figured out, but just kind of keep trying things till you find something that works and trying to avoid, spending mega bucks on things when you're just going to fall down and get it dirty anyways.
Perfect. Thanks, Doc. Well, I think, the common thread is find what works for you. And if it doesn't, tweak it a little bit until it does. And I think you've also made that point that you don't have to go and spend thousands on that specific cycling gear. Same thing, I'm a glasses wearer with the goggles. So I'll put my goggles over over my glasses. If I get to a certain temperature, I find there's no chance for the glasses to not fog. So that could be a slight issue. The pogies or the bar mitts, I'm not a big fan of them. I think if you have decent mitts on, I don't like being kind of contained into the end of the bar mitts or the pogies like that. But sentimentally, this was one of my favorite teacher gifts that I got from one of the kids that I taught a few years ago. And his mom would take just old parkas, either her own kids or go to Valley Village, and she would convert the sleeves of an old ski jacket into and put a reflective strip on it and turn them into pogies herself. So some homemade versions that you can make out of an old jacket. I think that's probably a lot of clothing talk, and I think there's probably within the people in the room here a bunch of ideas of their own. So maybe at the end, if you've got something that you want to throw into the chat box or mentioned when we get to the end of the program, then you can definitely share that tip with us as well. But with that, I think what we'll do is we'll move on to winterizing your bike. Are there any adaptations or things that get changed over on your bike? And maybe at the same time, are there any specific maintenance or cleaning things that you do through the winter time to keep the bike running? And so I think this time what we'll do is we'll start with Jim. Jim, you're muted. Jim, we'll get you off of mute before you start. There you go.
Okay, I'm using a borrowed iPad, so I'm mobile, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go outside and I'll turn the camera around. Bear with me for a second. Okay. So this is the current bike that I commute with. It's an old 1980s mountain bike that I'm not a fellow who likes to wear knapsacks on my back. So I've got a front carrier to throw something on, usually a knapsack with lunch or whatever else. I've also got a rear pannier on the back and then a lock on the other side. It's simply a matter of you don't need a nice bike. I've found this is in probably now about 17 or 18 years of winter riding. This is my third winter bike. This is the cheapest one. This one was free from a neighbor. I paid $5 at a garage sale for another one, and my most expensive one was $65, and that was the first one. It's basically a bicycle that will be very robust, strong metal frame, relatively heavy. In terms of shifting system, 8 gears is plenty. As you get more gears, the chains get more narrow and they get more expensive. A chain for a 7 or 8 speed rear derailleur is somewhere around $10 to $12. And I'll buy several, and in a really sloppy winter with lots of snow, I'll change the chain probably once over the course, because they get a lot of road salt and other things on them. Changing a chain is very simple, and there's plenty of people who will show you how, or you can go to a bike shop and watch them do it, and then you'll realize that you can buy a chain tool for almost nothing, and under $10. So in terms of tires, this is a Schwalbe Ice Spiker. They're currently retailing, I think, for probably in the range of about 125 to 130. In my opinion, it's nice to have two, and you look at, oh my goodness, I'm going to be spending maybe $300 in total on tires, but think tanks of gas and how long they last. This one I just threw on the ground is about, I think, 6 years old, and it's still usable. They last forever. I have several winter bikes now because I'm collecting things because I can't stop. But full of studs. You can see them there. These ones are a bit rusted, but they continue to work. And if you can only afford one, put it on the front, because that's the tire that's going to move and make you fall down. On the back of this bike, actually, I've got a Schwalbe winter tire. It's a little narrower because the wheel I ended up replacing, the tire didn't fit anymore and was dragging on the frame. So it has a few studs on it, but is about, I think probably about $60 for that tire. So you do pay for tires, but I absolutely suggest buy at least a front winter tire, or some of the people today will talk about what you can make yourself, because there are lots of adaptations that people use as well. I'm sitting quite upright on this one. I like to sit quite vertically, and as I say, I don't wear a knapsack. A couple other things. I've got some of these plastic, very cheap deflectors just to keep some of the snow off. Cable ties are my friend. I've seen people make them out of all sorts of things as well if you have a piece of plastic. So anyway, I think I'll probably stop there. There's probably many other. I'm a bit of a curmudgeon when it comes to these things. I just want to use what will work. And I'm also extremely cheap. So that's probably already apparent. And I'll go back
Thanks,
in
Jim.
now.
Yep, that's a great overview of what you got going on out in the garage. Thank you for that visual. Zach, do you want to talk a little bit about your bike setup?
Sure. I should have gone out to my garage too, but I started out on a mountain bike. I did that for a few years, and then I moved to a fat bike. It's fun. I find it a lot of work to pedal. So I actually put some studded tires on my road bike last year, and I love that. So now that it's getting cold and hard out, like the snow is getting harder, I'll probably get the road bike out again. I don't do a lot of specific winter changes. Like my garage is not heated, so I find as long as the bike stays cold, it doesn't get rusty. So it's like it sits in a bike box at work. I bring it home, I put it in a cold garage, and between like November and March, nothing melts, so nothing rusts. I do change which chain lube I use. The chain lube I use in the summer is like a wax base, so by about -5, it turns solid. So I run Muck Off makes a great one. It's called their -50 Celsius lube or something like that, and it works really well. Other than trying to keep cables clean and stuff, I don't find I have a lot of problems until about -30. After -30, things don't want to work right anymore. I mean, I don't want to work right anymore, but I've actually had things like freewheels freeze up, so you can't pedal anymore, and that sucks. But for most of the time, just brush the snow off a bit. I try and in the shoulder seasons, I try and brush off the like the brown sugar snow that sticks to the bike. I find that I end up going through a lot of bottom brackets, I think, because the snow hits that part of the bike and stays there and eats away at it. But it's just general cleaning the bike and maintenance, and I change the tires when I do the winter tires on the cars in the fall and the spring, and good to go for the winter.
Thanks, Zach. Lots to digest there. That was great. And Pam, do you want to tell us a little bit about your winter bike setup?
Yeah, sure. So my winter bike setup is also, or primarily, it's a road bike. It's a road bike I bought specifically for winter cycling. I got it at the BCBC. I wanted to plug them. And I think it was $60. It's like a 1980s Fuji, like super heavy, like heavy metal frame. So that's been nice and robust. And I have the one studded tire as well, just on the front, which I also got at the BCBC. Jim was mentioning that it can cost up to over $100 for a new tire, but you can get one at the BCBC used for $20. So something to consider. And then I just basically purchased some new fenders, nice, like light, flexible ones. That was really good with all the snow muck gunk coming up. And other than that, I think everyone else kind of covered everything. I think I I could use for more consistent maintenance, because I did end up fixing my bottom bracket as well and replacing chains and replacing actually the whole um, gear set as well, just from overuse and rusting. I'm going from a heated garage to another heated space at work. So there was a lot of temperature change.
Yeah, I'm glad that a couple of you pointed out that temperature change idea. I know I bring my bike into work during the day, and then it's in an unheated garage at night. So I do have the daytime. So I do make sure when I'm at school that I give it a wipe down so that snow isn't going to seep its way in. Because you're right, you are going to go through drivetrain, bottom brackets, and chains and things like that. The studs, real quickly before we move to the next section, I have a couple examples that I just wanted to show. I brought in just a homemade version of a 4-inch, like a fat tire, where I'd made studs, bringing basically the screws in from the inside, which was the first way that I would do it, even with my grade 8s for a number of years. The problem is, unless you have like the store-bought carbide studs, these are going to wear down real fast. The tips of these screws aren't going to last all that long. The other thing, that if you are going to do something this direction, I would take a second tube, slice it all the way, and use it as a liner in between your actual tube that you're filling and the tire. So you've got a little bit of buffer zone to keep from pinch flats from the flat side of the screw heads. With my class last year, we switched over, and thanks to Bike Universe does a great job of doing this workshop with us. This year we're doing it at school for COVID reasons, but John's been great. And with the last couple of years, we took some just some 3/8 chopping screws and went from the outside in, but actually didn't go into the tire. We have kind of hit the nubs kind of on the outer edge and angled them in a way that they're not going to protrude through the tire. So longer lasting, I think just as effective in terms of grip. And then I think a couple of you, I think Pam noted, and I think you all noted that skinny tires can totally get you around in the wintertime. And so this is a store-bought carbide stud. I think maybe you mentioned this same tire, Jim. This one's a Schwalbe Winter Marathon. And so this is one that's lasted for a number of years, costs more, but is proof that you can get around on skinny tires. Lights would be another one that probably you're going to think about sort of what sort of system you want to use, because you're probably coming and going from work at dawn, dusk, or in the dark, and just keeping things warm, charged when you're not riding your bike, and just having a system to make sure they're ready to go, which is tough when I'm getting all these grade 8 kids to come to and from school, to remind them to have a system to keep their lights charged and to keep their lights off when they get to school. It's lots of reminders, but I think getting into that routine is helpful. The third category is just some tips about actually staying up on your bike. So anything, or even thinking about getting around on different surfaces, different routes that might cause a little more or less stress. So some maybe Saskatoon specific tips, but also some more generic tips in terms of riding your bike around in the wintertime. I'll rotate it again. So this time I'll start with Zach.
Riding. It's like, I find that once winter sets in and you kind of get that hard layer of snow on all the roads and stuff, I don't find the riding that bad. And I can ride more or less where I want to, but it is definitely always at the forefront of my mind. You know, it's such a difference from planning a route when you're driving, to planning a route when you're riding, because it's like, I want to stay off the main roads, because in wintertime you're stuck right in the lane. You can't ride near the edge. So I find that if you can find, like, bus routes are great. Lots of times a bus route will go through the neighborhood and it's cleared off first, but it's not necessarily a heavy traffic road. If you can get on the Meewasin, it's good. They usually have that cleared pretty quickly. I think the bane of everyone's existence is the brown sugar snow that collects in intersections. It's like when I started out riding, I started out on a mountain bike with just knobby tires, and did a winter of that and fell down one too many times and decided to get studded tires. And And it still didn't really help with that snow. That's kind of, I bought studded tires thinking they would be this cure all for everything, and they they're good. They're good in places, but they're also not good in places. So then I was like, well, I'm gonna get a fat bike because then I'll just cruise right over all that snow and I don't have to worry about it. And it does for the most part. The intersections don't scare me anymore. I can get into a car rut and just cruise, and then you get about 3 kilometers in and you hit a big incline and it's a bit of a slog because you're riding these big squishy tires around. And it's you're always with the fat bike. I'm always thinking tire pressures. If you have too much pressure, you bounce around. If you're too little pressure, you get soggy and you get slow. So then it's a move to the road bike. And like you said, skinny tires, it's a different idea. It cuts through the snow instead of going over it. And I find it does pretty good in a little bit of snow as well. It's maybe a little unpopular opinion, but I actually think in my opinion, the mountain bike was the worst choice. It was not wide enough to float over the snow and not narrow enough to cut through the snow, and you end up slogging your way through the middle of it, and it can be a little off-putting. So it's when I was riding my mountain bike, my best technique for getting through that snow was get up some speed and then not pedal through it. Just kind of coast, concentrate on your balance, wait till you get through that 3 foot patch of soft snow and then carry on your way. But if you're trying to pedal through it is usually when you unbalance yourself and wipe out. And a knobbier tire helps because it'll eat through that. Whereas I rode the Schwabe winter marathons for a long time, and they're great on the Meewasin Trail. Not so great if you get a little deeper snow. They kind of plug up on me, I found. So it's once again it comes back to you got to do what works for you. If you live on a busy road and you have good snow clearing, you don't have to worry about those things, then the winter marathon's probably fine. Or you could go with the ice biker like Jim and ride around on your dirt bike tires. That's what's on my fat bike. I've got the narwhals on there, and there are these huge knobs and 240 spikes, and it's like I can almost pick up the front tire on ice. Like the back tire grips so well, but it's all a trade-off. Yeah.
Thanks, Zach. I like how you had a mix in there of different tools that you use, but also a lot of the technique. And I think that's one that I probably have taught to the kids as well. It's that idea of get up some speed on the hard pack sections, so that if you've got a little part to blast through that looks a little bit sketchy, maybe it's that snert, that snow and dirt, and you just kind of get your butt off the seat, get in the ready position, and try and just coast through it without pedaling through it. I think that's a great tip. Pam, we'll move over to you and see if you have some ideas on the riding of the bike.
Sure, yeah. So my commute has always kind of been within the downtown core, either from Newtana to Caswell Hill or from Riversdale to the downtown core. So I'm mostly dealing with some pretty main roads and like driving in areas that are more trafficked, I suppose. But that's actually been kind of has worked in my favor because those roads are typically pretty clear. And I'll agree with Zach that you're kind of stuck with being in the ruts if you're going to be on those main roads, because the side of the road will not be cleared for you to be cycling in. But I usually just use that opportunity to take up space as a cyclist in traffic and kind of make myself more visible and let drivers recognize that we are people that are getting around as well and are allowed to use the road as well. Apart from that, I was trying to think of anything else. No, that's pretty much it. That was the main thing, is that I don't avoid it that much, the ruts, because they are the quickest and they are the most visible. And I guess one thing that is nice about cycling is that if you are ever stuck anywhere, it's really easy to just pick up your bike. Like, you can always just become a pedestrian. And so that's a nice thing versus getting stuck in the snow or in the car.
Yeah. Great, Bob. Those are definitely helpful tips. move over to Jim. We got some tips for us to ride your bike.
I'm kind of an early riser, so I get up in the morning and I see what the temperature is, and then I go for a little bit of a stroll, sort of a pretend jog with the dog, and we have a little chat, and then I determine how long it might take me to commute. I actually cycle just under 12 kilometers each way. I'm outside of the Circle Drive Circle, and I go through residential areas initially. And what that means is I continually will just choose the easiest route through residential streets, which means very often on the sidewalk, if that's the easiest. Sometimes you can kind of see that the road is clear in some spots, and so that I'm on the road in the ruts for a bit, then I'm over onto the sidewalk, then I'm back on the road. One of the interesting things, and people have always asked me, don't you feel it's dangerous to ride in the winter? And, I've only actually I've been hit twice in about, I'll just say I'm in my 60s. How's that? And we won't go any further. I've been hit twice, and it's only been in the summer. And what I've noticed is that when I'm riding in a rut along a street, a road of any kind, it appears to me that the drivers are frightened of me in the winter. They don't want to kill me. They're sure I'm going to fall down and they're going to run me over. So I don't have anything scientific. I would like a little gauge or something, and I would like to laser shoot all the cars going by. But they tend to move further away. So there's a lot of safety in winter riding because drivers are quite respectful of this. You look weird, they think you're crazy, and they want to avoid you. I mentioned in dressing, I basically sort of gauge by sort of 10-degree increments and put on another layer. So by the time it's 40 below, I might be wearing, a dress shirt like I normally wear, and I might be wearing 3 layers on top of that. But then, it can be very cold, and I'm working fairly hard. The drivetrain doesn't pedal as well. You're not shifting gears as much because everything is sluggish, and I'll build up some heat. I've already mentioned I don't wear a backpack because I don't like to sweat. But what you do is you just say, okay, I'm heating up. I won't go as fast. It's not a race. And you kind of slow down and enjoy the commute. The really sort of key issue for me, and it's mentioned that I'm a psychologist. One of the reasons I really started cycling in the winter and year round was because I found that driving made me unhappy. It didn't give me a happy experience of life. And if your commute is not an inconvenience, when I'm in a car, it's like, get me the hell there. Get everybody else out of my way and get me the hell there, and I'm not enjoying this. Cycling has become simply part of this happy day that's just part of my life. I just do it and I enjoy this. So it's a completely different approach to transportation, that it's just a normal part of every day. The other thing that happens in the winter is we have a fair number, and I've watched the numbers of cyclists increasing. It used to be every day I'd see the same people. I don't know their names, and we'd all say hi. Now I recognize most of the people, but I don't recognize all of them, and they all still say hi. Nobody ever says hi when you're driving, do they? They honk and they swear and they give you the finger. So I'm going to just say a few other sort of odd old man things. I buy myself a Christmas present every year because nobody knows what to get me. And so 3 years ago, I bought myself, just a minute here, how do I do this again? I bought an avalanche shovel. And what this means is, and I'll just, you won't be seeing anything for a minute. What this means is I can get off my bike, and if I can't actually get through something, I pull up my damn avalanche shovel and I shovel myself a path. When the graders will put up something, you just take your 15 or 20 minutes. What the hell? I'm going to make my own pathway through. I have actually thought I should get a snowblower and I should run around plowing these trails through places where there aren't trails. when I was at the Winter Cycling Congress that, oh, I better switch my camera around here, that Tyler mentioned, there are several people in Calgary that do precisely this, where there are not plowed trails through. Every snowfall, they go, yes, we're going out and we're making a bike trail. And then they would go on holidays and people would phone and complain to the city that the trails weren't plowed, which I thought was just glorious. So I just want to really convey the idea of winter cycling. If, you know, well, Kathy Watts of dear recent memory, I mean, she's 72 and she was cycling all winter. I would meet her for meetings and we would be, you know, talking about when we would meet. And you get very good at timing how long things take you. You know, you don't talk about distance. You say, well, it's going to take me about 25 minutes to do that. And some of your commutes in the winter will be maybe even twice as long. And sometimes you're cold, but then you get there and you're all happy because you're warming up. The problem with a psychologist, of course, we listen for a living, so I can talk for a long time. But I'm just going to say one additional thing about the whole psychology of it. We're hearing a lot about mindfulness, right? And people being unhappy and they're feeling stressed and pulled in all sorts of directions and they're not enjoying their life the way that they might. It's 30 below and you're on a bicycle. What do you think you're thinking about? You're thinking about cycling. You're thinking about your fingers, your toes. You're thinking about getting there. And you're not thinking about all the people you're going to argue with in your day or the troubles of the world or whatnot. So,
thanks a lot, Jim. I think lots under there, lots to think about. I think a couple real simple things that we can pull from that. I think just that idea of slowing down, not just for the enjoyment, but also just so that you can make sure that you're safely getting to where you want to go. I know there's a couple spots that I always sort of pick up on my commute that I remember every year that aren't necessarily maybe dangerous at this time of the year, but when we get into that freeze thaw time in the spring, there's a few sections of the New Austin that will actually water over and then freeze. And so there's sections you really have to watch out for, and just kind of taking a note of that. All sorts of things like tire pressure. I find you're talking about blocking the wind in terms of staying warm. It's not so much the temperature that's the issue. It's often the wind. So looking at your route and seeing if there's ways that you can get there that are a little bit more sheltered. I talk lots about you're deliberately turning a little bit more than you're leaning in the wintertime. So you're going slower and you're deliberately making those turns, where in the summertime, I think you can really lean into those turns and your bike's just going to slide out in the winter. So practice, pay attention to the things that are work. But I think, yeah, all three of you had some really good ideas in there. We'll move on to the general tips. And I think for time, we'll also, if anybody else has a general tip or question, we'll see if Stan can kind of scan the chat box if you want to start putting your questions in there. But if you have just a general tip that didn't fit into the other categories or maybe just came to you afterwards, we'll start with Pam. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Sure. I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what Jim was saying, that like commuting by bike is just like such a great way to start and end your work day. That's something I really missed, having to work from home. But if this is something that you're wanting to start small. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do it every day. It's just the fact that you're trying something, and like take those baby steps and just incorporate it slowly into your world. And if you can, start cycling in the winter in daylight, just for a little bit more safety, and perhaps do distances where you're comfortable walking if anything goes wrong.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. And on that same idea of just general tips, Jim, we'll go back to you. Do you have anything that fits that didn't fit another category?
Well, we talked about glasses and the problem with fogging up glasses. And I have frostbite in my face because I'm trying to see in very, very cold weather. And I've tried all sorts of things. And what I've devolved to is first aid tape. And in really cold weather, I'll put a strip of first aid tape over my nose and across my cheeks, and sometimes two of them. I did have bright pink for a while, but this is flesh tone. It doesn't really matter how you look, it matters what works. And, there's all sorts of little adaptations that you may make just in terms of what you wear. I also have many toques. I probably have about 10. And there are days that I call 2 toque days because it's so damn cold, and I have an adjustable helmet and loosen it up and wear 2 toques because it is cold. But the key issue, I think, even in the coldest weather, is you will at times overdress and you'll overheat. And people will ask you, aren't you cold while riding? And the answer is no, only when I stop.
Excellent. And we'll move over to Zach. Any general tips? And then I see that there are a couple of questions lined up that we've got in the chat. So go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to touch on is I get like this, I think this is my 6th winter or something. So I get lots of questions from people, they're like, do I need a fat bike or do I need studded tires? And it's like, aren't you cold and stuff? And I think winter biking can be quite daunting to get into, but I think the biggest tip is just don't stop riding. If you ride all summer and you get into the fall, it's like the what is it? There's like the boiling frog idea that if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and turn on the heat, they'll just stay there till they expire. But if you try and put a frog in boiling water, they'll jump out. And it's like that's the same thing with cycling. If you ride and it's 10 degrees out, it's nice and warm, and the next day it's a degree or two colder, and you kind of don't even notice that pretty soon. Oh, it's minus 15. I should be cold, but I'm not. And and it's not so daunting then. But when it's 20 degrees out and you've been riding, and then you don't ride for a couple of months, and you look outside and it's minus 15, and you're like, oh, I can't do this. It's too cold. And it's like you kind of get in your own head, and that's what I tell lots of people is just don't overthink it. Just get out there and ride, and you'll probably love it.
Excellent. Thanks, Zach. Stan, do we have some questions that you want to go through in the chat box?
Thanks, Tyler. Yes, we actually have a handful of questions. How about we go rapid fire, and I'll just ask a question. If any of the panelists that want to jump in, or you, Tyler, we can answer that and then on to the next one. First question comes from Michael. I got a studded front tire, but I still find myself slipping around. Would a studded back tire make that much of a difference?
Yes. If there's ice and there's snow on top of it, absolutely, that will make a difference. If you're just patient with starting off, it won't make that much difference once you're going.
I think it was Kevin Dunbar put a comment in there, just that idea of making sure you're putting weight over the tire that you're really trying to get grip from. So you really can add some more traction to the tires you have just by counting your weight over the tire.
Excellent. Question 2 comes from Michael. Again, any tips for riding downhill? I love to ride fast downhill in the summer, but this idea scares me in the winter with the ice and general bumpiness.
I just go for it. The more you break, the scarier it's going to be, or the more likely you're going to slip. So obviously, yeah, don't start with like the Victoria Bridge hill, but just embrace it.
I'd say kind of work up to it too. It's winter riding's a little bit different. You're going to slip a bit. You kind of, it takes a little while to get used to it. And once you get used to that feeling of the bike moving around a little bit on you, you can be a lot more comfortable.
Jim, anything?
Well, I would tend to, I do go down a hill and I have to cross the river. What I do is I basically start braking at the top of the hill, and I take it easy. I'm an old guy now, and I'm not that daring anymore. I will say, watch out for ice when going downhill. You can't brake on ice, and sometimes you need to make a decision to, change your road position.
Excellent.
Go for the hard packed snow out of the rut, for instance.
Yeah. Stan, another one?
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Heather asks, I have an 11-year-old son in grade 6 who has been bugging me for the last 2 years to ride his bike to school in the winter. He already does this when there is no snow. I'm worried he's a little young, but I don't want to discourage him. I also want to buy, I also don't want to buy a bunch of gear for him to decide it's too hard 3 days in. Any suggestions?
He's not too young.
No.
I think, yeah, he maybe, I'm guessing, Heather, maybe he has a mountain bike. Don't know the route to the school, but obviously sidewalks as much as possible. If you're wanting, he could walk his bike across some of the streets where there'd be sort of that thicker, kind of that brown sugar snow we're talking about. If there's any connected pathways through parks, those often probably are shoveled decently. Or at worst case, if he has a little bit of walking of his bike to do, I think that would be great. And he's definitely not going to be cold with the exercise that he's getting. So I think, we think about going skating or tobogganing or going cross country skiing or to Table Mountain, whatever we want to do. We don't think that's crazy to go do those things in the wintertime. So I think, letting him get out on his bike a little bit longer is definitely worth the gamble. Yeah.
I might suggest that a child deciding to ride their bike in the winter might encourage the parent to consider the same. I hope he's not listening.
That's what kept me biking one year. I was teaching out at Montgomery School, and I had a grade 8 kid who lived a block from me, and I knew he was biking every day, so I thought if he's doing it, I better do it. And it was the opposite. I think he thought if my old teacher's biking, I better go. And we just it kept us both going. Yeah. Goes back to what Pam was saying, is don't stop.
And well, I was also going to say, in terms of buying a bunch of gear, I started off just with what I had. I didn't buy anything new to start. And so, yeah, if you go slow, it's fine to not have anything really additional for gear.
Thanks, Pam. Stan, any more questions?
Yes, we have a few more. Thanks, everyone. Lori asks, and this is a bit related to some of the comments I've already heard. I'm new to winter cycling this year. Is it okay to ride on the sidewalks instead of the street?
You're not supposed to, but you better. I ride on the sidewalk probably half my route in the heavy snow days, for sure. There is a... Saskatoon Cycles has discussed, if somebody does get a ticket for riding on sidewalks, we'd like to hear from you. We have some people who are smart and know about laws and other such things, and we're interested in if this should happen in Saskatoon. I doubt very much you're going to get a ticket in the winter. You might in the summer if you're inconveniencing other sidewalk users.
Yeah, and the kids I'm teaching, they're still elementary school students. So through the fall and spring and summer seasons of school, I encourage them to get onto the street as much as possible, but that definitely changes in the winter. And I think riding the sidewalks is as we saw last week in some places. Yeah.
Saskatoon Cycles is talking with the police bike patrol. We don't have a winter police bike patrol, but we're talking to them, and we've discussed this, and the comment, well, it wasn't a verbal comment. I'll just say the police looked up and their eyes moved sort of as we talked about the bicycle bylaw. They know that some of this is, they have a fair bit of discretion with enforcement, and I think that should be the least of your worries. You want to think of your safety first.
Yeah.
And again, if you do run into trouble with that, I think Saskatoon Cycles would like to hear from you.
If Pam or Zach have nothing, maybe Stan, you can go to the next one.
Next one is gear related. Wayne asks, does anybody know of a bike helmet that has a visor? I think snowmobilers have fogless helmet visors, but these are too heavy. This question, if anyone, for anyone, you have an answer, feel free to leave it in the chat as well.
Yeah, I guess you're thinking like a complete visor as opposed to like sort of the brim on a helmet. Yeah, I don't know one that has that.
I'm wondering if those like downhill mountain biking, like full like face helmets might have an option like that. I haven't seen it, but
yeah, maybe. I know the snowboard helmets or the snow sport helmets have come a long way with having really cleanly integrated goggles right in, but not permanent visor. Next one, Stan.
Yep. Alec asks, tips for storing a bike in an apartment. I've taken my hybrid commuter out for errands and it obviously made a huge mess inside once the bike warmed up. Should I just use a mud mat to store the bike on? Do I need to wipe the snow from every nook and cranny? First time attempting winter cycling, and this is the main thing that's preventing me from taking my bike out on errands or even out just for fun. I'm not a daily commuter.
Yeah, it is quite a mess. I know our class is fortunate right now that we were awarded a few fat bikes, and they bring in a lot of snow. And so there's some unused shower space at my school, and that's where those bikes are stored, and they actually drain themselves. It's kind of like a bike car wash now. But obviously you probably don't want to turn your shower into your bike storage. But yeah, find a mat or somewhere where it can sop up all that excess snow. And you're not going to have to, I don't think you'd be, the time it would take to get at every nook and cranny each time you come in is going to be pretty time expending. But I think if you, just give a quick wipe down of the drivetrain. I don't know if the rest of you have any tips there.
I go from unheated garage to a bike box at work and back. But when I do bring bikes in to work on them, I look for cardboard. Somebody's got a washing machine or something, and I just collect cardboard. Back in the days when I changed my own car oil, I did the same thing. Now it's for having bikes drip upon.
Zach, any tips on bringing them in?
Yeah, I bought a couple of boot mats from like PV Mart or something. So they're basically just like a plastic tray, and stick one under each tire, and it kind of drains into those. Or I've seen people online put their bikes in their shower at home or their bathtub. I think that's a little far, but it's like luckily I'm not in an apartment, so I can leave it out in the unheated garage and it just stays frozen. But I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the answer to Michael's question in the text just now. Is it better to stay out in the cold? And it's easier on the parts if it just stays a constant temperature. I think there's a question from Joanna, Stan.
That's correct. Also echoes a question I was going to ask for the panelists. I'm curious about lights on the bike. What works for regular use? I should also add, from my own experience, I've had lights die on me during the middle of a cold ride. If there's any suggestions, I echo Joanna's comment. I would love to hear them.
I think the ultimate solution would be like a dynamo hub. I would love to do that. I get tired of charging lights all the time, and it would be nice if I had the money to get a dynamo hub that would just keep the lights going. What I've found works is buy lights that are too big. Like the lights I run around with in the winter right now, I think they're 1,000 or 1,200 lumen lights or something, and so I find that the bigger lumen lights have bigger batteries in them, and then I just run it at like the second lowest level. So I'm not blinding anyone, but I can throw them on my fat bike and go for a 2-hour ride in the river trails and have enough battery to do that. Whereas when I started, I was running smaller lights, and on a really cold day, the 20 minutes to work was iffy. So that's what I've found. Just buy something that's oversized so you get the bigger battery.
I'm on the cheap end of things. I buy cheap lights. Typically, a front and a back light will cost $15 together. And I run disposable batteries. I've had rechargeables, and they just don't last the same way. I also carry then replacement batteries. And if it's really cold, I'll slap 2 lights on it. So I'll run one. The next thing is run things on blinky mode. You're running, with an LED, you're running 50% of the power. That does annoy if you're with a lot of people, and you're flashing with them. It does annoy them, so you can stop running blinky mode. But they normally have little push buttons on the top. The rear one is always on blinky for me. So I go through probably And it's nice to have the double A's, not triple A's, because they're a lot cheaper. So when you're buying lights, but I find lights, I'm probably running them for probably close to 5 years, winter and summer, before they're toast. But I have to confess, I do buy double A batteries in bulk, and I do feel somewhat bad about it. But I think in the context of I'm not really burning any gasoline, I've been justifying it to myself. But I'd say have 2 lights if you can. I actually run a light on my helmet on the front and on the back as well. So I'm always lit twice. So if something dies, I'm kind of all right. So
I do a similar thing, Jim. I got the Petzl helmet or the headlight.
okay.
Well, you can buy a stick-on mount for your helmet, and the Petzl light hooks right onto that, and then you can have your second light.
So I've got the little blinky thing that cost probably $3 on the front with the button cells you buy at the dollar store. They're the CR, whatever they are, where you get 3 for $2 for that one. And then I've got a single double A for the back one. So there we go.
Thanks, Scott.
I'm very much on the cheap end of everything. It's probably obvious, except for my avalanche shovel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add, really. I just use rechargeable lights, and like I said, my commute's pretty short, so I'm lucky, and they usually last as long as I need to cycle.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there seems to be a bit of a split there with people using the double A's or the triple A's, and I know Greg has mentioned in the chat there are actually some really good lights that are USB charged. I've got a couple here. The brand is Surface. They're from the Bike Doctor. So you're paying a bit more for them. Actually, the taillight here is actually quite affordable. Easy on and off, just a little rubber clamp around your seat post. Or I find I actually like it on one of the rear stays, and I find that the light shines in a direction that's kind of catching people in a different direction. And I think that's probably going to be something that'll be noticed. And I can put it over on the drivetrain side of my bike. So it's, or sorry, on the opposite side of the bike from the drivetrain, so that it's closer to the vehicles. Keeping them charged is tricky, so I find that I even sometimes carry just an extra USB charging block in my backpack, and then I could charge lights from work if I need to, or I can just plug them into my laptop. It is a bit of a pain sometimes when you buy a couple of different lights and they have different size charging cords, so it would be nice to have all micro cords, but there are a variety out there, and you can pay a range of price for the amount of lumens you want. But they do last, and it is nice to have the knowing that you can plug it in instead of having to go buy more batteries. That's my take. Anybody else on lights? Otherwise, Stan, are there any other questions?
Really continuing this conversation about batteries, Michael asks, Energizer Ultimate Lithium AA batteries say they'll work up to -40. Anyone tried these? Problems that a lot of batteries stop working properly in the cold. Does anyone have any experience with those types of batteries, or even just with dying batteries? Jim, have you seen that you have to replace batteries all the time, or are they more reliable than maybe we fear?
Well, I've found that the AA lights are quite reliable. I buy things, when they're on sale. So I've got, here's another example of a front light. It takes 2 AA's. The rear one on this one takes, I guess it takes 2 as well. And they sometimes have multiple modes to them, but you just put them on blinky mode. Isn't that terrible? Just a minute there you go. You don't need too much of that. But I find on blinky mode, I will, depending on how long commutes take, and sometimes if I'm on the Meewasin Trail and it's not particularly dark, or it is completely dark, sometimes I'll turn the lights off because I can see the trail, lit up in the snow. So sometimes I don't leave the lights on all the time just to preserve. So I don't really have a lot of trouble with lights dying. I might go through probably in the range of about 6 AA's on a bicycle, total batteries in a year. So change it a couple of times.
Thanks, Jim. Any other comments or points on that? Or if not, Stan, how are we looking for the chat in the questions in the chat?
Looks like all questions have been answered.
Excellent. Well, maybe this is a good point to wrap things up. Appreciate the time spent from our panel and also from all the people that came this evening. I'm sure this panel could have been replaced by any number of people that we're seeing on the screen right now. So thanks for the questions. Hopefully you took something away from here today. Hopefully we cross paths out on the trails over the next little while. And again, thanks to Stan and the Bridge City Bike Co-op. Thanks to Jim, thanks to Pam, thanks to Zach, and everybody have a great evening.